I recently read an article that stated, living with teenagers can sometimes feel like you're living with a ticking time bomb. You never know when the bomb is going to go off, how big the blast is going to be, or what state your relationship will be in when the blast is over. Hello, my name is Carissa Miller, and I am a professional life coach who specializes in the area of personal and relationship development. I have two daughters, Jessie, who is 19 and a second-year student at Florida State University, and Kelsey, who is 16 and a sophomore at Seacoast Collegiate High School. This means I have taught two teenagers how to drive, and I survived. Today I want to share something with you that has been a game changer in my relationships, perceptions, and mental stability. It has become a pathway to building self-confidence, communicating effectively, and responding respectfully. As a teenager, this information would have had a huge impact on my career choice. So if you have been looking for a way to strengthen your relationships, better connect with your kids, or bring peace to your mindset, I am hoping that this podcast series titled Parenting Today's Teen will be helpful. Let's begin with part 1. Who are you really? When my daughter Jessie was in middle school, she took several personality tests. As Jessie shared the results, I noticed that each test result was correlated to either a color, number, 4-letter identifier, or clever name. Intrigued, I studied all the combinations of each of the tests and realized that it was impossible to keep it all straight. Personally, I have never been a fan of personality tests because they always leave me with the question, now what? What am I supposed to do with this newfound information, and how do I apply it to my life? So I set out on a quest to answer my own question and discovered that all those personality tests were based on the 4 temperaments. Temperament is the way we are naturally wired, the way we naturally think, behave, and communicate, which impacts the way we perceive, relate, and make decisions. Personality tests try to box us into specific categories, maybe to give us a sense of belonging, identity, or direction. But we are not meant to fit into categories. We are complex, uniquely wired individuals whose lives are filled with complicated relationships and decisions. Unfortunately, many of us venture through life unaware that we are the ones wreaking havoc on our relationships simply by being ourselves. Our lack of awareness can also lead to poor decision-making. When I was a sophomore in high school, I decided I wanted to become an airline pilot. In the 1990s, the benefits of this career path were enticing. A 4-year college degree that would quickly earn a 6-figure income, and a job that only required working 14 days a month. So shortly after graduating from Purdue University, I was offered a job with an airline. The only problem? Flying made me a nervous wreck. So eventually, I abandoned the aviation world and joined the business world, which was a much better fit for my personality. It wasn't until 15 years later, when I was knee-deep in studying the world of temperaments, that I discovered why flying airplanes made me so nervous. I do not like unpredictable environments. I hate making quick decisions. I panic in emergencies. And I am not calm under pressure. All major issues if your career is an airline pilot. As I continued collecting data on all the traits associated with the 4 temperaments, I eventually connected the dots as to why I suffered from chronic anxiety for over 30 years. I imagine the worst-case scenarios. I feel immense stress when I'm not in control of my environment. I fear the unknown, and I cannot relax until conflict is resolved. Finally, I was able to name what was driving my destructive thoughts. This allowed me to learn behaviors to adapt and control my mindset. This was a game changer. I cannot begin to express how comforting it was for me to discover the existence of traits that spoke directly to how I was thinking and behaving. Ever since I was little, I thought something was wrong with me because I worried all the time. In reality, I am just naturally wired to be an anxious person. However, that does not mean I have to live that way. Learned behaviors became my new normal. It dawned on me that I needed to teach my two daughters to become more aware of who they really are, so that they could gain confidence and feel a sense of normalcy for how they are uniquely and naturally wired. So I put together a collection of easy-to-follow exercises that would allow them to select traits and phrases that best described them. In our close relationships, it is so important to know how everyone is wired so that you can better communicate and understand each other. It is also a way to avoid major conflict. We are such complex individuals, but we need to acknowledge and appreciate each other's differences. Otherwise, we can fall into the trap of blaming someone who is not capable of meeting our expectations or satisfying our needs. By the way, the collection of the exercises is readily available and free of charge to anyone who wishes to participate. On my website, thriveintherealworld.com, there is a podcast and download associated with each exercise. As you work through the exercises, your traits will be specifically defined, helping you better understand what is driving your thoughts and behaviors. You will even discover how you view money, food, and fear. It's quite eye-opening. The ultimate goal of these exercises is to build your awareness by acknowledging how you are naturally wired, identifying how your audience is wired, and then managing yourself accordingly. In other words, the exercises will help you accomplish 3 things. Acknowledge the way you naturally think, behave, communicate, and perceive. Identify dominant character traits of the people who exist in your world, so that you can properly manage the way you communicate and respond to those people. By tweaking the ways you would naturally communicate and relate to your audience, you can create more pleasant and productive interactions. As you navigate through the exercises, you will be exposed to all kinds of character traits and behaviors, which will help you identify specific traits in other people. So when you are in the presence of your audience, pay attention to their verbal and nonverbal cues. Some of their dominant character traits will be revealed just by listening to their words and observing their actions and reactions. Then you can adjust the way you would naturally communicate or respond to create a more positive environment. Sometimes after identifying certain traits of an audience member, we realize that that relationship would be too difficult or even toxic, so it might be best to avoid contact altogether. But that might not always be an option, especially if we live or work with that person. So we must learn ways to protect our sanity and our character while being tolerant and respectful toward those types of individuals. I'll be honest, some of the hardest moments in working through these exercises was realizing that at times, my way of thinking or behaving was the source of conflict in my relationships. But by being aware, it allows me to better manage myself. If we desire to maintain healthy relationships, properly managing the way we are naturally wired is a necessary step. If you are in a relationship with a preteen or a teenager, you have probably caught on that finding effective ways to relate and communicate can be quite challenging. Knowing how they are wired is only part of the puzzle. So check out part 2 to discover what's going on in the teenage brain.